Hi, I'm Troy McGinnis, and I want to give you a demo of LLM as a service, specifically just the major features because it's quite feature rich, and I'm going to focus on the LLM operations side of the platform. So why did we build LLM as a service? Well, we integrated an LLM set of features into another SaaS application that we had, and it worked great with light use. But the moment that we ran webinars or we're doing major demos, we would hit quota issues with the vendors or downtime issues with OpenAI having downtime and so forth. And once we got through those and we built the technology to automatically fail over and so forth, we were then challenged by customers regarding privacy and PII information and EU data locations and so forth. And we had to solve those. And then we were challenged because it was on my credit card and I was constantly stressed out about how much usage there was and the unpredictability of the costs of each month, how we handled trial users and how we handled overuse and how we migrated people into the upper levels of the paid platform. And we built solutions for all of these problems, and that's what we're offering you now in LLM as a service, so you can benefit from our journey. Now, this presentation is really about the control panel. Now, there's the client side interface of when you make calls and a server side gateway product, but its features is controlled through the control panel. And when you create a new account, what you get is a project in the control panel. And that's what I'm going to demo now. I'm going to show you the key concepts of how to set up the different services and how they route and how to manage conversations and agents within those. So with that, let's get started with the demo. The home page is the first page in the main menu in the left panel. Now, the top bar of the home page is the status at a glance. And all you really need to know is that white is good and red is bad. And these give you the main settings that the project has currently running and serving traffic. Let's look at them in detail. So the name is just a friendly name that you use when you invite others. That's the name that you see when you send a status email. That's the name that gets appended in the subject line so you know what project you're looking at. Project status, it will generally stay at active. You might only disable it if you're under a denial of service attack or you have a security issue where you can switch off and block all traffic ever hitting this service. The description is just a friendly name. It doesn't get used anywhere. It just gets displayed on the screen. The system instructions for the project are the base level instructions that get sent with every prompt. Now, you would use this to include safety, like we have, and we give you a default when you create the project. But you can include brand and legal policies that you want to make sure that any response that you send to a customer abides by these system instructions. It's a way of injecting safety into your prompts. Response caching. If we get exactly the same prompt within an hour on this project, we will serve the result we got last time, saving you token costs. So it's a cost-saving effort, and it also improves the response time for customers. Load balancing. LLM as a service allows you to set up many services and models for vendors, and we will keep trying until one of them gives a successful response. It's a way of, again, improving the reliability of the service by automatically failing over, meaning that one outage from a vendor will not mean that your customers are impacted. Load shedding allows you to define tiers of customers and block traffic for some of them. And you might do this, say you're doing a trade show keynote, for instance, and you might want to just block free trial customers from using the services for a period of time. Well, this is how you would shed those customers to retain the capacity for the top tier paying customers at any moment in time. Rarely used, but there if you need it. Maintenance mode is something you can switch on that blocks all AI features and returns the maintenance message response. And you might use this, say you're updating your product and it's in the middle of a new release. You might sort of switch on maintenance mode temporarily to make sure that users don't get erroneous responses through the AI at that period of time. And I'll show you what that looks like in the control panel by switching that on. Now, underneath this is what happens when a new customer comes along. Now, when you make calls into LLM as a service, you can mark them as which customer they're from by a customer ID and a customer email. Now, if it's the first time that we have ever seen those customers, you have your choice of what you're going to do. You can put them in a default tier, and we put them in the middle tier by default. And we give them 1 million tokens initially to use. Now, think of this as a trial period. So say you have a 30-day trial for your product. Well, when a new customer comes on for the first time and they make their first call, they'll get 1 million tokens. And this is a way of limiting how many tokens someone who isn't a paid customer yet can use. And then you can set up replenishment rules for each customer however you want to. But this is the default they're going to get whenever they come on board. And again, what happens when you switch any of these to their abnormal state is they glow red here. And that just lets you know what they're going to be. Again, the master switch is there for you to use. And the only time we really foresee you using it is if you're under some denial of service or security attack. Now below that, you get your statistics on calls and errors and cache hits. It's just a way of seeing if there's an abnormally high or abnormally low amount of traffic or errors. And on the right panel here is response quality. Inside the responses, the users can click a thumbs up or thumbs down button. And this is a way of you tracking and trending good and bad responses, and with the blue being the total. And this comes in handy if you're trying out a new model. One of the releases, say Anthropic or OpenAI, come out with a new model, and you put that into the mix. If you start seeing a decline in quality, then you might want to switch off that model and not use it. Underneath the charts is some cost breakdown statistics, and it looks at the last 30 days, and it gives you your total spend by vendor. It gives you the total cost that you have compared to what it would have been if every call went to ChatGPT 4.0. Now remember, one of our key features is the fact that we do automatic prompt complexity routing. So prompts we determine require a really strong, powerful model will go to the premium group, and you'll see how to set those up soon. But if it's give me 3 cat names, it's going to be routed to the default group. And what you're going to see is what we see is normally about a 60 to 70% savings compared to if every call went to ChatGPT 4.0 as our reference. And that's, you also get savings by, again, if we get the identical prompt, we will serve it from memory and not go out to the vendors. And we total that up for you as well, so you can sort of see how much you're saving through caching and routing. Underneath that, and this looks a little bit boring because we only have one customer, but if you have multiple customers, you will see the cost breakdown and chart based on the customer name. So you can see at a glance your top 5 or 10 customers who are using the features in earnest. Underneath that, you get a very quick sort of call log, and you can filter that by the HTTP status code from the vendors. 200 being good, 302 meaning that we got a cache hit, we didn't go to the vendor, we served it from memory, and anything starting with a 5 is an error. And you can sort of see, as I see at a glance, sort of what status and how the vendor's reliability is at that moment in time. And underneath that, it's just a chart, a heat map. Darker color of red is from where the calls are coming from. And sometimes, say you're in the middle of a denial of service attack, you might see some countries that are flooding you with millions and millions of calls. You'll sort of spot that here, and then you can either temporarily switch off the service or block those countries from making requests, and just send them a fixed message. Now, the LLM services page is where you define all the models and the groups. Now, let me define what a group is. So a group can be any collection of models with some similar trait. And by default, when you create a new project, we give you 3. We give you a default group, a premium models group, and a private models group. Now, the difference between the way we've set this up is that the default group is the lesser expensive, lighter models, and the premium models are the higher cost models, generally higher quality responses as well. But remember, through the smart routing, we will route sort of simple calls to the faster and simpler default group, and really complex calls, complex prompts, that require more reasoning into the premium model groups. And again, that's just to A, get a faster response to the users when they ask simpler questions, and B, to save you some money because the default models are an order of magnitude less expensive than the premium models. And that's constantly changing. Now, we give you an Anthropic, an OpenAI, and a Google, and for each, and they will change over time. But any call that's made will go to one of these three. So in other words, if we're routed to the default group, it'll either go to Anthropic, OpenAI, or Google. Now, you can specifically target one model if that's what you want, but typically you would sort of target a group. And if you need to know how to do that, you can just copy the code and it will show you how to embed a call in your application that always targets this group. And if you copy this code, always targets the premium group. And you can always test. And the test will actually test that the group is actually active. And at the moment, I turned on maintenance mode, so you'll sort of see it returned the response that we saved there before. So we can see that that's working. So now if I come back and test, you'll see that it's going to give a positive test, and that one's going to give a positive test. Now, when you turn it out of compact mode, what are these 200s? These 200s are the HTTP status responses from the vendor. 200 is good. 300 is better because it means we've got a cache response and it didn't go out to the vendor at all. We just served it from memory. Anything that's pink and in the 500 range is an error. So at a glance, you can sort of see which vendor and services are not performing at that moment in time. Now, a service is nothing more than a sort of a name and a status and which group they're in, a vendor and so forth. But anything that you would call the vendor's API, and we set these up for you by default, so you don't need to understand how these work. But just understand that what we do as a gateway is take the call that you wanted to send to a vendor in a vendor neutral way, and then we rework it into the way each vendor requires its specific sort of inputs. And the only thing that you really need to come in here for is really to make a test call and to test that this service is set up correctly. Now let's talk about API keys, and you have a choice. If you don't enter an API key like we have here, and that's the way it comes out of the box, then you will have to purchase, it will during the trial period, it will use our trial tokens. And once you become a subscriber, you can top up the token balance, and that rolls over month to month. So it's not a monthly fee, it's just a fixed fee for you covering it. Now, alternatively, you can go to each of the vendors like Anthropic and get an API key that's against your credit card and just add it here. In which case, you don't have to pay us for the token usage. You're going to use your own account with the vendor. But by default, we ship it so that you're using our tokens to make sure that you can trial it and you can get up and running without making any extra costs. And what we give you down the bottom here is the input and output token costs that we use for the accounting on the homepage that you saw before. Now, when you want to add a new group, add a new service or group, you just click one of the buttons up the top up here. Now, when you add a service, it will give you all the different services that are out there, including, say, you were going to use the Claude 3 Opus model, which is $15 per million inputs, $75 per output. It's not one you would probably want to put in major rotation, but say you did, when you hit add, it sets all this up for you. And really all you have to do when you decide to is set it to active and hit save. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to pay $75 per million tokens, but it's up to you. So there's nothing else on the services page that you need to worry about. If you do switch them off, you have your choice of hiding and unhiding them, but I don't have any of those at the moment. And if you wanted to change the name of the model group settings, you can just edit those. Now, each of the groups can also have their extra system instructions. So you might want to have a group that says that is for internal personal information and so forth. So you might want to tighten what this group's instructions are, and it will either be appended to your project instructions or it will replace them depending on what you choose to do here. So you might tighten the privacy or the policy based on a set of services that are for younger adults or something like that. It's up to you. So the route page is where you handle the special situations of different safety aspects and also routing complex prompts to stronger models. So starting from the top, we have our PII redaction features. Now, personal identifiable information, or PII, you can handle in a couple of ways. One is for the different types of PII that we automatically identify, like identity and phone number here. What happens is they get redacted. So on the way out, they get replaced with a random string. That gets sent to the model. When the model responds with the same random string, we replace it back to what it was so that from your customer side, they won't notice anything. But the PII information has never gone out to the LLM vendors. Or you can block them. So if there's a credential, a password, or an API key inside the prompt, it will not leave the building. What will happen is this message gets returned. Prompt contains PII data and it gets blocked. So it never makes it out to the vendor either. Or you can have your choice there and maybe send those PIIs into internal models using private models that are hosted locally. So you have your choice of how to handle it. By default, returning a fixed message is the way it ships out of the box, and you can choose which ones to turn on or turn off. So next up is the prompt contains blacklisted words. Now you can come up with a set of words that you don't want to serve. So it might be, let's say that there's kill or murder or hurt. If any prompt contains those words or phrases, what happens is again, a fixed message gets returned, or you can route it to a specific group. By default, we leave that empty and we leave it up to you to choose what phrases or words you use, and we just return the prompt contains blacklisted words. Now you could use this if you put in your major customer names or people names of your customers and so forth. If someone even accidentally in a prompt includes those company names or confidential information or project keywords or something like that, it will block it. So you can use this as a very quick way to make sure that you don't send your key customer names externally. Now, we also do some automatic harmful content checking, and we have a machine learning model which looks for all sorts of different types of sexual nature, self-harm, hurting, and so forth. And it looks at the prompt, and if it exceeds a certain amount that you said, and we default it to 0.85, so you probably won't have to move that unless you're getting a lot of false positives. What happens is anything with that unsafe language gets blocked, and we just return a prompt contains unsafe language fixed message. Or again, you can route it to an internal model and do what you want. So the point is that this model is pretty comprehensive. It will block most unsafe language that you can think of in cases, and it's just a way of keeping everything nice and friendly. And the last one is the one we're sort of proud of, is that you can sort of use our default machine learning model that's been pre-trained on prompt complexity. And what it will do, if you switch it on default to the default model and you choose to route to the premium models, if it deems that a prompt is complex, it will route it to the premium group of models that you set up. Otherwise, it's going to route it to the default group. So what does that mean? If it's a complex prompt determined by our model, it will route it to this premium model group. If it's not complex, it will route it to the default group. And what you will find is, and you need to track the response quality as determined by your customer, but what you will find is that you'll get a much faster response on these defaults for the simple prompts, and you'll be getting a deeper response quality from the more complex prompts and saving some money along the way. The agents page is where you define your agents. Now, what is an agent? Well, an agent for us is a predefined set of instructions that can do a certain task. So things to do in a city agent. And we've set this one up so that you can give it an itinerary, and it will come back with a 3-day sort of plan about what to do and what to eat in Seattle, for instance. And you can have hyperlinks and action buttons and do all sorts of stuff like that. Contact us, call to actions inside them. Now, it's a very complex sort of topic, but what an agent really has is a set of instructions that tell it what to do. So everything you just saw came about because of these instructions, and we have training on how to come up with the agent instructions to solve anything that you might sort of need. But the cut a long story short, these instructions are what drives what the panel does in functionality. And how it looks is all determined in the UI panel section here, where you can customize it with your own branding, what's color theme that you want, the title that's across the top, the way the hyperlinks and actions get converted into links that the user can click on and so forth, whether we can capture the conversations and show call to actions. There's a lot of stuff that you can do inside the agents to configure how it looks. We can pass data back and forwards for context. You can upload documents or URLs to use as what's called retrieval or augmented generation. And what it does is it uses documents, and it pre-filters what context is required in the agent to make an answer for the user that makes sense. So it's a way of injecting data into your agent and prompts. And all of these features are combined together to give you pretty much a very easy but powerful way to create these sorts of chat interfaces within your applications that work with the data that you want. And at the end of the day, you're probably going to end up with many of these. And when you want to put it inside your application, you can either grab an iframe to, say, embed it on your WordPress website, or you can grab the code to use our npm React component to do all sorts of any amount of interactivity that you want with inside your application. So, of course, this sends the calls through LLM as a service, so you get all the other factors of the safety and the routing and the multiple services failover and all those other features. But you get a first-class user experience inside your application, so your customers can use the panel that you provide. The conversations page gives you a transcript of all the conversations that customers have had with your agents. Now, you can capture them and set them up, and what we do is we automatically mine those and look for the BANT status, the budget, the authority, the need, and the timeline if they were mentioned. We find the LinkedIn profiles of anybody mentioned in the conversation, and we look up the company and the URL as best we can. So we do the basic research for you. You also get to see a number of flags that talk about whether a customer has asked for a call to action, whether they've clicked on the suggestions or interacted in various ways with the system. Now, rather than reading the entire thread, we automatically at regular intervals sort of summarize what was said, so that you can just browse through these and understand what they have to say. Now, the way it works, of course, is here's an agent for product sales and support that we created that's on our homepage, actually. And what it talks about is it asks people to whether they've got questions about our product. And when they sort of click on them, it gives them the benefits, and then they can interact on them. And they might sort of say, I use HubSpot, need to move within the month. And this whole conversation is going to be then interactive, and it's going to tell them the the value proposition and so forth, and a timeline for implementation. Well, if we come back over to our conversations now, we can see that whole thread and we can analyze it and understand whether this is a lead that you might want to personally follow up on. And in this case, we mentioned all four. We mentioned the timeline. We mentioned that we're ready to move, so we indicated authority. So if you see sort of any of these conversations coming in on an agent that's on your homepage, then you're in good shape. And that's what we like to see. We want you to build agents that help you convert in whatever way you deem necessary. Well, thank you. So that's the quick demo of all the LLM operations features. I hope that you found some of that interesting. And if you do, go to llmasaservice.io and check out the rest of our information about the product, or email me directly, troy@llmasaservice.io, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.